Ask any Resident Evil veteran who the face of the franchise is, and most will say Chris Redfield or maybe Leon Kennedy. But ask a newer fan, and while it's definitely not Ethan Winters for obvious reasons, you might hear a surprising name. Not a hero, but a villain, Jack Baker. So why has Jack become such a beloved antagonist? And with everything we know, is he even truly a villain? Let's dive into one of Resident Evil's most tragic stories. Our story begins in Dulvey, Louisiana, where the Bakers lived a quiet, ordinary life in a sprawling American home. Jack, Marguerite, Lucas, and Zoe made up what seemed like your typical nuclear family, until the day that they crossed paths with Evelyn, a seemingly innocent young girl hiding a far darker secret. Evelyn was anything but harmless. She possessed a terrifying power, able to infect and control others through a unique fungal mold mutation developed by the E-Series bioweapon program. Though unrelated to the Cadeau parasite seen in later games, Evelyn's mold similarly twists victims' minds and bodies. Under her influence, the Baker estate plunged into chaos, transforming into a madhouse where some had their worst traits amplified while others fell entirely under her sway. Among those victims, and yes, I do mean victims, was Jack Baker, the once loving father of the household. Jack was once a kind and caring man, even shown trying to protect Evelyn when they first found her. But once she seized control of his mind, he became a senseless, brutal killer. Evelyn exploited Jack's towering, imposing frame to torture, maim, and even cannibalize over 100 victims. We see evidence of this early in Resident Evil 7, where 3 reporters or possibly paranormal investigators encounter the very real, very deadly Jack and are swiftly disposed of. Obsessive about being the Baker's only daughter, Evelyn forced Jack to sever ties with Zoe. Yet for reasons unknown, perhaps sheer force of will, Jack never managed to kill Zoe despite Evelyn's influence. Now that we've explored Jack's tragic backstory, let's dive into his unforgettable role in the events of Resident Evil 7. After receiving a video message from his supposedly deceased girlfriend Mia, Ethan Winters packs his bags and heads straight to its source. He arrives in Dulvey, only to find himself in a nightmarish household reminiscent of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, complete with deranged residents who seem ripped from that very influence. Rescuing Mia is no simple task, because Ethan's first real obstacle is none other than Jack Baker.
Welcome to the family, son.
The man who sets the horrific tone for everything to come. From a gameplay perspective, Jack is an absolute tank, a regenerating, hard-hitting monster whose main goal is to belittle the player and strip away any sense of power. He's the game's first brutal lesson that Resident Evil 7 is no ordinary entry in the series. You're not a super cop or a bioweapon specialist. You're an everyman utterly outmatched by these freaks. Jack is rightly treated as a terrifying threat, because that's exactly what he is. Through sharp writing and clever coding, his entire existence is designed to make Ethan, and by extension the player, suffer. Your resistance feels meaningless, and even when you think you've defeated him, Jack always comes back. He's a character drenched in slasher tropes but transcends typical slasher villains through sheer personality and brutality. Jack doesn't merely hurt you, he'll shoot himself in the head just to prove how unstoppable he is and make you watch in horror. Whether that's an expression of internal struggle or simply a show of dominance is left disturbingly ambiguous. But here's why all of this matters. How do you humanize a character you've built to be a monster? While many other slasher villains have tragic backstories or external pressures explaining their actions, Jack's situation is more complex and more horrifying. He wasn't as entirely controlled as we once believed. According to the BSAA write-up, the bioweapon's effect isn't simply mind control. It's described as inducing extreme violent tendencies, while leaving the victim's consciousness intact within the parasite. We know this from 2 key sources. A. Shadows of Rose, a DLC expansion for Resident Evil Village, and B. Jack's own words when we finally speak with him. Calm and lucid, Jack reveals reveals that Evelyn doesn't outright control minds. She invades them, twisting thoughts and feelings until her victims bend to her will. So all those people Jack killed, tortured and cannibalized, he did those things, but in a warped mental state while his true self remained trapped and helpless, forced to watch in horror. And he wasn't alone in this torment. Marguerite and eventually even Zoe experienced the same cruel fate. They watched their own bodies become vessels of violence and suffering. That's where the real horror lies. Jack is terrifying not just because he's strong and murderous, but because even he can't stop himself. Beneath the monster is a man fully aware of the atrocities he's committing, yet utterly powerless to intervene. Against that kind of evil, you stand no chance. Ethan's only real chance to defeat Jack comes in the latter half of the game, when he finally obtains the world's only 2 doses of the cure. In a desperate bid to save himself, Ethan stabs one of them into Jack, ending his torment and causing his body to calcify. The last glimpse we get of Jack in the main story is his consciousness trapped within the parasite, delivering a final desperate plea for Ethan to free his family from Evelyn's grip, a mission Ethan ultimately fulfills by the game's conclusion. Yet somehow Jack survives even this apparent end and re-emerges in the End of Zoe DLC. Admittedly, this part of the lore does get a bit muddy. As the Resident Evil wiki explains, the mutated Jack managed to survive Zoe's cure due to his poison cells growing out of control, evolving into a decayed but near-invincible creature nicknamed the Swamp Man, who acted on his own accord after Evelyn's death. In the end, it forced Jack's own brother Joe Baker to finally put him to rest once and for all. Speaking personally, I genuinely believe Resident Evil 7 tells one of the best stories in the entire franchise. As I've explored throughout this video, Jack Baker isn't just a one-note monster. He's a complex, horrifying figure who taps into some of our deepest human fears: death, the loss of bodily autonomy, powerlessness, and vulnerability. Despite being a heavily fictional sci-fi character, Jack feels chillingly authentic. His family dynamics, southern drawl, and sprawling domain all feel disturbingly real, as if a man like him could be lurking in the Louisiana swamps. If you want to create a truly great villain, you have to make them plausible first, and then give people a reason to fear them. For me, what makes Jack so terrifying is the knowledge that he's being used as a vessel, stripped of mercy or remorse and driven into violence and madness against his will. Jack achieves all of these narrative goals and then some. He's a character I still dread facing on every replay, yet one I also profoundly pity. With all this in mind, I think it's fair to say that Jack Baker isn't just another Resident Evil villain. He's a figure who changed the series forever and stands as the face of an entire era. This video was chosen in a members-only poll by my awesome members: Gog, Wizard Elf, Eternal Canadian, Fresh Pokemon Hunter, Rossmo, and Bear. I'll be doing more members' votes, so feel free to join the channel. A huge thank you to everyone who's watched, and a gigantic thank you for 10,000 subscribers. I am forever grateful for you all. Thank you.